Okay, next up we have Harshal Agrawal with his project AgriSim, a user-friendly learning tool for farmers to prevent harmful algae blooms.
So algae are these microscopic organisms that can range anywhere from being one single cell organisms to these large, thick seaweed-like mats. And quite simply, algae are just when you have excess amounts of algae in a body of water. And so all the states on this map that are green have a severe problem with harmful algae blooms, and all the states on this map that are both green and lime have a problem with poisonous harmful algae blooms. So as you can see, since most of the map is green, harmful algae blooms, or HABs, are a severe problem in the continental US. And so HABs are really harmful for three reasons. The first being that all species of algae are toxic, so the toxins that they release are harmful not just to aquatic wildlife and pets, but also to humans. Second being that algae is a very expensive problem to clean up. So these aforementioned toxins, they're so small and they're so hard to filter that cities often have to spend millions of dollars into building new infrastructure to be able to filter these toxins from their drinking water. And lastly, algae causes hypoxic dead zones in bodies of waters. And so what happens is, as algae dies and decomposes, it consumes dissolved oxygen from that body of water, and it creates areas in that body of water where life just cannot survive because of a lack of oxygen. So for my study, when making my model, I'll be basing it off a case study that I conducted on Lake Erie. So Lake Erie, this year, is a satellite image of the harmful algae bloom in Lake Erie in 2014. And as you can see, according to this graph, Lake Erie has been having severe problems with harmful algae blooms, or HABs, for the past couple of years. So what we see on the y-axis is a measure of severity, and there's a slight general trend that says that over the past few years, Lake Erie is having more and more severe harmful algae blooms. So harmful algae blooms really occur because of one thing, and that one thing is excess nutrients in the body of water. So the primary nutrients are nitrogen and phosphorus, and these can be found in a variety of sources, including feces as well as fertilizer. So for example, when farmers apply fertilizer onto their field, they're just applying excess nitrogen and phosphorus. And let's say if it rains following the application of fertilizer, all these excess nutrients end up running downstream into a body of water as part of that rain and cause for a HAB. Furthermore, when we have wastewater treatment plants that get an excess amount of rainfall one day, they have to discharge, and their discharge often has excess amounts of nutrients from human feces that they treat. So this map shows you the source of phosphorus coming into Lake Erie for the past couple of years from the 1970s. And as you can see on this map, for the first couple of years in 1970, the red bars would symbolize not point sources. So point sources are sources such as factories or wastewater treatment plants. There you have dirty water coming out of a single pipe, so they're more controlled. For most of the 1970s, the major source of phosphorus were these point sources. But as you move into more recent times, the green bars, which symbolize non-point sources, such as farms and feedlots, they're growing in proportion to the red bars, meaning that now, in recent times, the source of pollution is not so much these factories, but it's rather runoff from these farms. And so that's where we need to focus our attention on. As part of my study, I wanted to conduct a stakeholder analysis, and I identified two key stakeholders in this problem. The first being farmers in that Lake Erie region, so in particular the Ohio watershed, and second being state governments. And so what I did as part of my study to understand the perspective of both these stakeholders is I interviewed numerous representatives from both stakeholder groups. And after interviewing them, what I found is that they don't entirely have conflicting perspectives, but they have very different perspectives. So the government believes that the cause of these HABs is farmers applying excess amounts of fertilizer onto their field. And so this view is shared not just by the government, but by a lot of scientific institutions as well as officials in the field. And so what the government thinks is the right way to approach this problem is to spend money in attempting to educate these farmers on how to better apply fertilizer. So for example, states like Ohio and I believe Minnesota, they made a new law which requires farmers to undergo 3 days of fertilizer certification training before they can actually apply fertilizer onto their field. And so the government really thinks that the best way to go about this is to invest money into educating farmers. But on the other hand, farmers believe that they really can't do much to help this problem because they've already, for the past 10 years or so, have been significantly decreasing the amount of fertilizer that they apply onto their field. And so they feel like at this point, they're at the point where they just can't apply any less fertilizer because then they'd be seeing a loss in yield. And so what farmers believe is happening is, at least in the Ohio region, there's been more and more rainfall occurring for the past 10 years, and these rainfalls have been occurring at more and more uncommon times. So farmers can't really apply fertilizer in the main growing season. Because of that, they have to apply in the off seasons, such as your early fall or late winter. And this is because during the main growing season, farmers just don't have the time or the labor available to do tasks like harvesting as well as applying fertilizer. So if a farmer is applying fertilizer in fall for the next growing season, you're basically having these nutrients lay out in the field, susceptible to rainfall for 3 to 4 months. And so if you're going to have excess rainfall, which Ohio has been having, you're going to have increased amounts of runoff from your farm. And so what I believe is a good compromise between both these sides is vegetated buffer strips. So buffer strips are areas of land grown downstream of your farm, and these areas of land are usually in proportions of 1 to 100, with 1 being your buffer strip and 100 being your farm. And these strips are comprised of vegetation such as shrubs or bushes, and they naturally filter runoff that goes off your farm, and they reduce significantly the amount of phosphorus in your runoff. And so when making my model, I wanted to make sure I have an equal balance between user friendliness as well as accuracy. Because right now there are numerous models that could accurately take into account of wide plethora of factors in a watershed and calculate how much algae will get as a result of fertilizer application. And so SWOT here is a very big example of that, because this is the most widely used and most peer-reviewed hydrological model in the world. But with SWOT, it's meant for postgraduate students, and your average farmer cannot use it. So I want to make a learning tool that the farmer could use and understand to see how his actions, such as fertilizing, are going to have an impact on the environment. So the first stage of my model, AgriSim, is fertilizer application. And here farmers can input data about their farm, such as how much fertilizer they apply, so application rate, as well as what's the strength of their fertilizer. So fertilizers that are stronger will have higher NPK values. And so with this taken into account, AgriSim calculates of the fertilizer applied how much phosphorus is actually available in the top layer of the soil for runoff, or phosphorus added to soil solution pool. In stage 2, farmers simulate a rainfall event, and here they input data about rainfalls that could occur on their farm, and this is in millimeters. On top of that, farmers have to also input this number called the SCS curve number. And the SCS curve number is very important because this is how I can manage both accuracy as well as user friendliness. So the SCS curve number is a number that you commonly find in your soil analysis sheet, which most farmers have. And this curve number takes into account a wide variety of factors, such as your soil quality, the amount of grass that grows on your soil naturally, as well as soil composition. And basically, this number tells you what's the potential for your soil to experience wide runoff. And so with these numbers taken into account, AgriSim calculates how much runoff you're going to get on your farm in terms of volume as a result of a given amount of rainfall. In stage 3, farmers input these two particular numbers, so soil bulk density as well as phosphorus soil partition coefficient. And both these numbers basically help you further calculate how likely it is for phosphorus that was originally in your soil to detach and get caught into the runoff. Soil bulk density is just a measure of how compact your soil is, whereas the phosphorus soil partition coefficient is basically a measure of how fluid or how easy it is for phosphorus to get detached from soil particles. And so with these inputs, this model calculates how much phosphorus will initially be lost in your runoff. And stage 4 is the intervention phase. So here in stage 4, farmers can experiment with 3 different varying options with buffer strips, so none, high, or low. And farmers could see how these buffer strips, if implemented on their farm, would reduce runoff, as well as what the cost with these buffer strips are. And lastly, in stage 5, farmers get to see the end impact of their actions and with this is harmful algae blooms. So farmers can see how, given an amount of fertilizer that they're applying onto their field, if that fertilizer were to get caught in runoff, how would that lead to algae growth? And this growth is represented in terms of algal biomass concentration. And so the purpose of AgriSim really is to be used widely by farmers nationwide, and that's why I made a simple app that has 2 inputs, that has an input page and an output page. So farmers input the data in the first page, and the model will calculate what the output for that farm should be in terms of algal biomass concentration as well as additional cost. And so this here is a very basic and my initial version of the app, but my plans for the future are to make this app more complicated or more graphic. And so how I plan on doing that is for farmers to be able to see a visual representation of a lake as a result of their input. So instead of seeing algal biomass concentration in milligrams per liter, maybe what could happen is there could be a graphic lake on the screen, and the number of green pixels on that lake, which symbolize algae, can be proportional to the algal biomass concentration. So there really is a lot more feature work to be done with this model, but the purpose of this phase of my study was to basically get the foundational math behind the model. And so thank you for your time.